Hello, everyone. I am the sleep storyteller, and I am here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before we begin, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps out a lot. Also, let me know in the comments, where are you from and what time are you listening? Now get comfortable and relax. The night had settled over London, casting a hush upon the city as the world drifted into slumber. But beyond the veil of the ordinary, hidden between the winding streets and old brick walls, there existed a place untouched by time, a place where magic whispered even in the stillness. Tonight, beneath the silver glow of the moon, Diagon Alley lay cloaked in an enchanting quiet, its usual clatter replaced by a serene hush. The lanterns, which by day flickered merrily in the presence of witches and wizards bustling about their errands, now swayed gently in the night air, their golden light stretching across the cobblestones like melted amber. At the entrance, just behind the leaky cauldron, stood two figures wrapped in warm cloaks, their breath rising in faint wisps against the cool midnight air. Hermione Granger traced her fingers over the worn bricks, her eyes alight with quiet excitement. Have you ever wondered what Diagon Alley feels like after everyone's gone? She had asked Harry earlier that evening in the Gryffindor common room, her voice thoughtful, distant. The idea had planted itself in both their minds, and before they knew it, they were here at the threshold of the wizarding world, when it was asleep and at peace. With a swift tap of his wand, Harry Potter watched as the bricks shifted and swirled like liquid stone, revealing the hidden passage that led into the heart of the alley. As they stepped through, the world seemed to exhale around them, the magic settling into its softer, nocturnal rhythm. The familiar shops stood in quiet repose, their signs creaking faintly as if murmuring in their sleep. Ollivander's loomed ahead, its ancient wooden door shut tight, but the faintest glow of wand light seeped from within, casting curious shadows across the cobbles. The large window of flourish and blots displayed a tower of spellbooks, their gilded titles shimmering in the moonlight, as though still brimming with energy from the many hands that had perused their pages. "It's different," Harry murmured, adjusting his glasses. The alley, so often alive with chatter, laughter, and hurried footsteps, now felt sacred, as if revealing a side of itself only a few ever witnessed. The absence of voices made every sound more profound: the rustle of a hanging sign, the distant hoot of an owl, the soft scuff of their boots against stone. Hermione nodded, taking in every detail. "Imagine the stories these buildings could tell," she whispered. "All the spells cast, the potions brewed, the wands chosen. Even now, it feels as if the alley is alive, waiting." They wandered past the dimly lit storefronts, each carrying the weight of unspoken history. At the magical menagerie, Hermione paused to peer through the glass, her breath misting the window as she spotted a tiny curled-up Kneasel, its fur rising and falling with slow, steady breaths. Even the creatures seemed to know it's a time for rest, she mused, Harry turned his gaze upward, following the jagged rooftops until his eyes landed on the stars stretching above them. "It's peaceful," he admitted, feeling a rare sense of calm settle in his chest. For once, there were no dangers looming, no expectations pressing down on them, just the quiet companionship of two friends sharing a stolen moment in time. Their footsteps guided them deeper, drawn toward the heart of the alley, where the air seemed to hum with an ancient magic. Then, as they turned a familiar corner, something unfamiliar caught their eye. Tucked between two well-known shops, where Harry was certain no shop had been before, stood a small, peculiar storefront. Its wooden sign, worn yet regal, swayed gently overhead. Elwyn's curiosities, enigmas, and artifacts for the inquisitive. Hermione gasped softly. "I've never seen this shop before," she whispered, stepping closer. Harry frowned, following her lead. "That makes two of us." Through the dusty window, shelves brimming with trinkets and relics, bathed in an eerie silver glow, stretched into the dimly lit interior. Strange wind chimes tinkled softly near the entrance, though no breeze stirred the air. A presence lingered in the silence, not ominous, but watchful, as if the shop itself was waiting. Hermione's fingers hesitated on the doorknob. She turned to Harry, her expression alight with curiosity. "Shall we?" Harry met her gaze, a thrill of anticipation sparking in his chest. "Let's find out." With that, the door creaked open, and the night pulled them into the unknown. The door groaned softly as it swung open, revealing the dimly lit interior of Elwyn's curiosities. A hush settled over them, deeper than the silence of the alley outside, as if the air within held its breath in anticipation of their arrival. A warm, spicy scent, cinnamon, clove, and something more elusive curled around them, weaving through the narrow aisles stacked high with ancient tomes, delicate hourglasses, and glimmering trinkets whose purposes were long forgotten. Harry stepped inside first, his boots making the floorboards creak beneath him. Hermione followed, her eyes darting from shelf to shelf, cataloging every strange and marvelous object. A set of delicate, silver wind chimes near the entrance swayed, as though disturbed by an unseen force, their ethereal notes sending a faint shimmer through the air. "This place feels different," Hermione murmured, fingers tracing the spine of a book covered in shifting golden runes. Harry nodded, his gaze caught by a glass display case containing a collection of small, glowing orbs. As he leaned closer, one of them pulsed in response, a faint hum resonating in his ears. Then, without warning, the orb flickered and projected an image into the air, a phoenix soaring through a golden sky, its wings catching the light like molten fire. Harry's breath caught at the sight, a sense of calm washing over him as he watched the majestic creature disappear into the void. Hermione had wandered further in, pausing before a low wooden table covered in delicate hourglasses. Unlike any she had seen before, the sands within these moved with a will of their own, swirling and reforming in mesmerizing patterns. She picked one up carefully, and as the grains shifted, glowing symbols appeared, only to dissolve again as soon as she tried to read them. "Time turners?" Harry asked, stepping beside her. She shook her head. "No, something else. It's almost like the sand is responding to me." Before she could investigate further, a soft glow in the far corner of the room caught their attention. Beyond the shelves of artifacts, half hidden behind a curtain of hanging beads, an intricately carved wooden chest pulsed with an inner light. The carvings on its surface depicted constellations, each star twinkling faintly, as if mirroring the heavens above. Harry and Hermione exchanged a glance, the same thought passing between them. They moved toward it cautiously, their surroundings seeming to darken with each step, as if the shop itself was directing their attention to this singular object. Hermione knelt before it, her fingers hovering just above the lid, hesitant yet enthralled. This is enchanted with star magic," she whispered, her voice tinged with reverence. "I've read about this kind of craftsmanship, but I've never seen it in real life." Harry watched as she lightly brushed her fingers over the wood. At once, the chest emitted a soft hum, the carvings glowing brighter before the latch clicked open of its own accord. The lid lifted slightly, just enough to beckon them inside. A scroll lay nestled within, its parchment thick and weathered with age. The edges gleamed with silver, and as Hermione carefully lifted it from the velvet lining, the writing on its surface shimmered, shifting between English and an unrecognizable ancient script. Harry peered over her shoulder. "What does it say?" Hermione's brow furrowed as her eyes scanned the glowing text. "It's a guide," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "A guide to the Night Keeper's map, a magical chart of Diagon Alley that reveals hidden passages and long-forgotten secrets." Harry's heart quickened, like the Marauder's map. Hermione shook her head slowly. "Not quite. This isn't just about locations. It's about knowledge. The kind that's been buried away, waiting to be uncovered." As she spoke, the scroll began to unroll itself, revealing a detailed illustration of Diagon Alley. But it was unlike any map they had ever seen. Alongside the familiar, pathways and shops were twisting alleys and hidden chambers, corridors beneath the cobblestones, and forgotten doorways concealed in plain sight. Then, just as they began to take in the enormity of what lay before them, the wind chimes near the entrance tinkled again. Harry's grip on his wand tightened. The shop door had not moved, yet a faint shadow flitted across the glass. "Did you see that?" he whispered. Hermione nodded, clutching the scroll tightly against her chest. "We're not alone." The glow from the chest dimmed, and the room seemed to tighten around them, the air charged with something unspoken. Then, from the farthest corner of the shop, beyond the shelves stacked high with forgotten artifacts, came a sound, a soft rustling, like parchment being turned by unseen hands. Harry instinctively stepped in front of Hermione, raising his wand. "Lumos." Hermione mirrored him, and their twin beams of light sliced through the dimness. The rustling grew louder. Then a figure emerged. Not a person, but a life-sized wooden mannequin, its joints creaking as it moved. It stood in the shadows, motionless for a moment, its hollow eyes fixed on the scroll in Hermione's hands. Harry's grip tightened on his wand. "Who are you?" he demanded. The mannequin tilted its head, and a deep, ancient voice echoed through the shop, though its wooden lips did not move. "The scroll is not to be taken lightly." The voice reverberated through the air, surrounding them. "Only those with pure intent may unlock its secrets." Hermione, despite the rapid beat of her heart, stepped forward, her voice steady. "We mean no harm. We only wish to learn." A long pause. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, the mannequin bowed its head. "The Night Keeper's map will guide you," it intoned. "Follow its light. But beware, some secrets are meant to stay hidden." Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the mannequin stepped back into the shadows. The rustling ceased. The air stilled. And though the shop remained unchanged, something in the atmosphere felt different, heavier, charged with meaning. Hermione carefully rolled up the scroll, tucking it into her bag. "What do you think it meant by, 'Some secrets are meant to stay hidden'?" Harry asked as they moved toward the door, casting one last look at the mannequin's empty space. Hermione exhaled slowly, her fingers tightening around the strap of her bag. "I don't know," she admitted, "but if this map shows us what it claims to, we're going to find out." As they stepped back into the moonlit alley, the weight of the scroll pressed against them, heavy with the promise of adventure, the thrill of the unknown, and the quiet hum of magic waiting to be awakened. The night air wrapped around them like a cool whisper as they stepped away from the mysterious shop, the cobblestones beneath their feet reflecting the silver glow of the moon. Hermione kept one hand protectively over her bag, feeling the gentle hum of magic still radiating from the scroll within. The encounter in Elwyn's Curiosities had left an undeniable mark on them both, an eerie, weighty presence that lingered even as the shop faded into the shadows behind them. Harry cast a glance back, half expecting to see the mannequin still watching from the doorway. But the shopfront stood still and silent, as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. "Well," he said after a moment, running a hand through his already tousled hair, "I think it's safe to say that wasn't just any old map." Hermione exhaled, her breath visible in the crisp air. "No, it was." She hesitated before unfastening the strap of her bag and pulling out the scroll once more. "I want to see what it shows us now." Carefully, she unrolled it under the glow of their wand light. The parchment responded instantly, its ink shifting and shimmering like liquid silver, revealing pathways neither of them had ever noticed before. Among them, one stood out, a narrow, twisting alley branching off from a familiar landmark, the apothecary. Harry pointed at the map. "That wasn't there before." Hermione nodded. "It It must be responding to us, showing us what we need to see. They exchanged a glance, the thrill of discovery sparking between them. Without another word, they set off, their footsteps quiet against the stone. Diagon Alley, in its midnight hush, felt like an entirely different world. Without the usual chatter and movement of witches and wizards bustling about, the very air seemed charged, filled with the lingering essence of centuries-old magic. The buildings, ancient yet alive, stood watch as the two figures wound their way through the alley, guided by the faint glow of the map. As they neared the apothecary, a subtle change in the air prickled at Harry's senses. The alleyway seemed darker here, the shadows thicker, as though something unseen wove between them. Hermione slowed her steps, her eyes fixed on the brick wall where the map indicated a passage should be. There, she whispered, pointing. What had seemed like a solid wall, just moments ago, now held the faintest glimmer of an outline. A doorway concealed in the very fabric of the alley itself. The runes marking its surface pulsed softly, reacting to their presence. Hermione's fingers hovered over the markings. These, their protective sigils, she murmured, her voice tinged with both excitement and caution. Whoever placed them wanted to keep something hidden, or keep something in. Harry swallowed, and yet the map led us here. She turned to look at him, uncertainty flickering in her gaze. Should we go in? Harry considered the question. A younger version of himself, the boy who once charged headfirst into danger, might not have hesitated. But something about the quiet weight of this moment made him pause. The mannequin's warning echoed in his mind. Some secrets are meant to stay hidden. Still, curiosity and purpose outweighed hesitation. Only one way to find out, he said. With a deep breath, Hermione placed her palm flat against the door. The sigils flared in response, a soft golden light tracing the intricate carvings before melting away into the brick. Slowly, with a groan of ancient stone grinding against stone, the doorway opened, revealing a narrow passage leading into darkness. They stepped inside. The air changed instantly. The chill of the night was replaced by a dense warmth, thick with the scent of old parchment, candle wax, and something more elusive, something electric. Their wand light cast long shadows against the stone walls as they made their way forward, the passage curving downward beneath Diagon Alley itself. It wasn't long before the corridor opened into a vast underground chamber. Harry and Hermione came to an abrupt stop, their eyes widening at the sight before them. Towering bookshelves lined the walls, filled with ancient tomes whose spines glowed faintly in the dim light. At the center of the chamber stood a grand fountain, its waters shimmering with a silvery luminescence. The rippling surface sent flecks of light dancing across the room, casting strange, shifting shapes upon the walls. Hermione exhaled in awe. This is incredible. Harry stepped forward, his gaze drawn to the fountain's base. A small silver chalice rested on its edge, its surface engraved with the same runes they had seen on the door. He reached out hesitantly, his fingers brushing over the cold metal. "Do you recognize these markings?" he asked. Hermione knelt beside him, tracing the engravings with a delicate touch. "They're similar to the ones Rowena Ravenclaw used in her enchantments," she murmured. "It's a symbol of wisdom, of unlocking knowledge." Harry glanced down at the map in her hand. "Maybe this is part of the test." Hermione looked thoughtful. "The mannequin said we had to have pure intent. What if the map isn't just leading us to hidden places? What if it's testing us, seeing if we're worthy of the knowledge it guards?" Harry considered this, then nodded. "So what do we do?" She took a steadying breath. "We trust it." Carefully, she lifted the chalice, dipping it into the shimmering fountain. As soon as the water touched the metal, a soft pulse of light rippled outward. Then the water stilled. A voice, soft yet commanding, filled the chamber. "Seekers of the Night Keeper's map, you have proven yourselves worthy." The light within the fountain brightened, twisting upward into a glowing figure, a spectral projection of an elderly wizard with wise, knowing eyes. "The path ahead will not be easy," the voice continued. "This chalice holds the key to understanding the map's true purpose. But be warned, knowledge is both a gift and a burden. What you choose to do with it will shape the path ahead." The glowing figure raised a hand, and as he did, the map in Hermione's hands began to shift again, revealing new paths, ones that led beyond Diagon Alley, stretching across the wizarding world itself. The vision faded, leaving them in silence once more. Hermione clutched the chalice to her chest, her mind racing. "Harry, this isn't just a map." Harry swallowed, staring at the shifting parchment. "It's a guide." The weight of what they had just uncovered settled over them. The alley had given them a gift, a key to knowledge lost to time. And now, it was up to them to decide where the journey would lead. The glow of the spectral figure faded, leaving only the soft shimmer of the fountain and the hushed weight of discovery pressing against them. The underground chamber felt vast, its air thick with the scent of ancient parchment and something older, something woven into the very fabric of the wizarding world. Hermione held the silver chalice close, her fingers tightening around its cool surface. The map in her other hand continued to pulse faintly, its ink shifting like liquid starlight, revealing more than just hidden paths. It revealed possibilities. Harry exhaled slowly. "All right," he said, breaking the silence. "What do we do now?" Hermione didn't answer immediately. Her gaze flickered from the chalice to the map, then to the towering shelves filled with books that whispered of forgotten history. If this map is more than just a guide, if it's a test of worthiness, she trailed off, her thoughts weaving together faster than she could voice them. Harry arched an eyebrow. "Hermione." She blinked, snapping back to the present. "We need to understand its purpose before we decide anything," she said firmly. "It's showing us more than Diagon Alley now, look." She unrolled the map fully, laying it across the smooth stone floor beside the fountain. The parchment stretched wider than before, its lines and symbols shifting. The alley they knew was there, but now the map reached beyond, expanding into unfamiliar territory. Harry crouched beside her, watching as intricate pathways and secret corridors appeared, extending past the boundaries of the known wizarding world. Some led into the depths of Nocturne Alley. Others twisted toward what appeared to be long-lost ruins hidden beneath the surface of London. "This is incredible," he murmured. "It's like the Marauder's map, but on a whole different level." Hermione traced a path with her fingertip. "Look at this," she whispered, pointing to a tiny, almost imperceptible mark near the edges of the map. The ink pulsed softly beneath her touch, revealing delicate runes interwoven with the pathways. "This isn't just a map of locations, it's a map of knowledge." Harry frowned. "Knowledge?" She nodded, her voice barely above a breath. "It's guiding us to places where magic has been hidden, where history has been buried." Her fingers tightened on the edge of the parchment. "Harry, what if this is more than just a relic? What if it's a record of magic that people have forgotten? Or worse, magic that people wanted to be forgotten?" The thought sent a shiver down Harry's spine. He looked at the map again, his mind suddenly swimming with possibilities. If what Hermione was saying was true, then this wasn't just a discovery, it was a responsibility. Before he could speak, the air around them shifted. A low, distant hum vibrated through the chamber, soft at first, but growing in intensity. The water in the fountain rippled, and the bookshelves lining the walls trembled slightly, as if something unseen had stirred. Hermione's eyes snapped to the chalice in her hands. Something happening. The silver cup, once inert, was now glowing faintly, its runes shimmering in the dim light. Harry felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. "Do you think we activated something?" Before Hermione could answer, the map pulsed once, twice, then flared with a burst of golden light. The chamber around them blurred. The air twisted, and then, suddenly, they were no longer in the underground chamber at all. The world reformed around them in a swirl of magic, the stone beneath their feet replaced by something softer, something ancient. When their vision cleared, they found themselves standing on a vast, open terrace beneath a sky filled with unfamiliar constellations. A great marble hall stretched before them, its towering columns carved with intricate patterns of magic. The walls gleamed with a light that was neither moon nor sun, but something in between. Hermione inhaled sharply. "Harry, where are we?" He turned slowly, taking in their surroundings. The air smelled different here, crisp and untouched, like morning dew on parchment. His gaze fell upon the floor beneath them, and his breath caught. Etched into the marble at their feet was the same set of runes from the chalice. "I think," he said carefully, "that the map didn't just show us a place." He swallowed. "I think it brought us to one." Hermione's grip tightened on the chalice. This isn't just a hidden part of Diagon Alley. This is something else. She turned in a slow circle, eyes scanning the expanse of the marble hall. It feels like she hesitated, like a memory. A whisper of sound echoed through the air. Both of them froze, somewhere beyond the columns, beyond the shimmering walls of the terrace. Footsteps approached. Harry moved instinctively, stepping in front of Hermione. He reached for his wand, but before he could draw it, the space before them rippled, as if the very air had been turned to water. And then, from the shifting air, a figure emerged. It was not a ghost, nor a person, but something in between. Draped in flowing robes, the figure's form flickered at the edges, as though caught between existence and memory. Its face was obscured, but when it spoke, its voice was steady, filled with the weight of centuries. "You have come," it said simply. Hermione swallowed hard. "Who are you?" The figure lifted a translucent hand and gestured toward the map still held in her grasp. "You carry the Night Keeper's map," it said, "and with it, the burden of knowledge." Harry and Hermione exchanged a glance. The figure continued. "Few have followed its path. Even fewer have reached this place." It took a step closer, and despite the insubstantial nature of its form, the air around it pulsed with presence. "Do you understand what you seek?" Hermione's voice was steady. "We seek to understand the magic that's been hidden, the history that's been lost." A long silence followed. Then, slowly, the figure lifted its hands. "Then your journey is not yet over." The terrace around them darkened. The constellations above them flared brighter, shifting like ink spilling across a page. The marble beneath their feet trembled as symbols and pathways began to etch themselves into the stone, forming a pattern eerily similar to the map they had followed. "This is the true purpose of the Night Keeper's map," the figure intoned. "To lead those who are worthy to the knowledge that has been locked away." The constellations above shifted again, their patterns aligning with the map in Hermione's hands. "But be warned," the figure said, its voice deepening. "Not all knowledge is meant to be found." The light pulsed once more, and then, just as suddenly as they had been taken, Harry and Hermione found themselves back in the underground chamber, the glow of the fountain flickering as though nothing had changed. But something had changed. Hermione's hands trembled as she clutched the map. The parchment, still warm from whatever magic had just surged through it. Harry exhaled, his mind racing. "Hermione, what just happened?" She turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think we've just been given a choice." The underground chamber felt different now. The air was thick with magic, charged with the weight of something ancient, something that had seen them, judged them, and deemed them worthy of the map's path. The fountain's glow had softened, no longer pulsing with urgency, but instead casting a quiet luminescence over the stone walls. The silver chalice still trembled faintly in Hermione's grip, as if it, too, had felt the shift in the magic around them. Harry let out a slow breath. "All right, he gestured vaguely. Went somewhere." Hermione nodded, her brow furrowed in deep thought. It wasn't just a place. It was a memory. Or maybe something beyond memory. Her fingers traced the edge of the chalice. The way the stars moved, the way the runes responded. I think we saw something hidden outside of time itself. Harry looked down at the map, still unfurled between them. The parchment no longer revealed the expanded pathways stretching beyond Diagon Alley. Instead, the markings had settled, the ink cooling into the original layout of the hidden alleys beneath the wizarding world. But something had changed. At the very bottom of the map, written in shimmering gold, was a single phrase: "The path is yours to follow. The choice is yours to make." Harry felt a slow shiver trail down his spine. "They were warning us," he murmured. "The map is more than just a guide, it's a key. But if we follow it, we might be opening something that was meant to stay locked." Hermione looked down at the map, her lips pressed into a thin line. "But why give us the key if we weren't meant to use it?" Harry had no answer. He only knew that whatever they had stumbled into, it was bigger than either of them. The sound of distant bells echoed through the underground passage. A deep chime, rich and resonant, vibrating through the stone. Midnight was passing. "We should go," Hermione said finally, rolling up the map with careful precision. "We need to think about this properly, not just rush forward." Harry nodded. They had uncovered something powerful, something few had ever seen. But the weight of it pressed against them like an unspoken responsibility. They turned away from the fountain, retracing their steps back toward the hidden passage. The air felt different now, more alive, as though the chamber itself had awoken to their presence. As they reached the narrow corridor leading back to Diagon Alley, Hermione paused. "Harry," she said quietly. He turned back to find her staring at the walls. The stone, once smooth and unmarked, now shimmered with faint etchings, like invisible ink slowly being revealed. Hermione lifted her wand. Lumos. The light illuminated the markings fully, and Harry's breath caught. Rows upon rows of names covered the walls, stretching from floor to ceiling. Some were in ancient script, nearly unreadable, while others bore the elegant loops and curls of wizarding handwriting. Some names stood alone, while others were accompanied by symbols, runes, wand markings, and even tiny constellations. "This is a record," Hermione whispered, "of those who came before us, the ones who followed the map's path." Harry ran his fingers over the carved letters of a name near the bottom. "Some of these must be centuries old," he said. Then, his fingers paused over a name that sent a chill through him. Newt Scamander. He turned to Hermione, eyes wide. Newt Scamander was here. Hermione's mouth parted in shock. "He must have found the map," she murmured, "or something like it." She moved along the wall, scanning the names. "There are Others here we recognize. Look. Harry followed her gaze. There, amid the countless names, were a handful that stood out. Bathilda Bagshot, Nicholas Flamel, Rowena Ravenclaw. Hermione inhaled sharply. Rowena Ravenclaw herself, she whispered. That means, she turned to Harry, her eyes alight with realization. She created the first version of the map. Harry stepped back, taking it all in. This place wasn't just a secret chamber. It was a passage of history, a crossroads for those who sought the knowledge buried beneath the wizarding world. And now, their names would be added to it. The thought sent a shiver through him, but before he could voice it, Hermione gasped. Harry. He turned just in time to see it, at the very bottom of the wall. New script was forming. The letters shimmered into existence, their golden glow matching the ink on the map. Harry Potter and Hermione Granger. Neither of them spoke. The sight of their own names, freshly etched among the greatest seekers of knowledge, left them momentarily breathless. It wasn't just that they had found something hidden. It was that, in finding it, they had become part of its history. Hermione's fingers brushed over the letters. We're part of this now, she murmured. Harry swallowed, his mind racing. This had started as nothing more than a midnight walk through an empty Diagon alley. But now, it was something much more. They had uncovered a secret that tied them to the past, and whatever came next, they would have to face it together. With one last glance at the names carved into the wall, they turned and stepped back through the passageway. The hidden door sealed behind them with a soft hum, and once more, the alley was silent. The stars stretched above them, cold and bright. The streets of Diagon Alley lay quiet, as if the magic within them was holding its breath. Harry and Hermione stood there for a long moment, neither speaking, simply absorbing the weight of what had just happened. Then Hermione tucked the map back into her bag. "Let's go home," she said softly. Harry nodded. Without another word, they walked side by side through the empty streets, their footsteps echoing against the cobblestones. They had entered the night as two curious students, but they were leaving it as something else entirely. The cool night air wrapped around them as Harry and Hermione stepped back into the quiet embrace of Diagon Alley. The alley had remained untouched in their absence, the lanterns flickering with the same soft golden glow, the cobblestones whispering under their footsteps. And yet, something had changed. The weight of the map inside Hermione's bag felt heavier now, as though it carried not just parchment and ink, but responsibility. The names on the walls of the underground passage lingered in her mind. Rowena Ravenclaw, Nicholas Flamel, Newt Scamander. And now, theirs. We're part of something bigger than we realized, Hermione murmured, almost to herself. Harry glanced at her. "Yeah," he said, "and I don't know if that's exciting or terrifying." Hermione gave a breathy laugh, though there was no humor in it. Both. They walked in silence for a while, the quiet between them not uncomfortable, but thoughtful. The streets of Diagon Alley, once so familiar, now seemed to breathe with a deeper magic, as if the very buildings knew what they had discovered. The old wooden signs creaked gently in the breeze. The windows of flourish and blots reflected the pale moonlight, and far off, the rustling of a passing owl cut through the stillness. As they neared the entrance back to the leaky cauldron, Hermione slowed. "We should look at the map again." Harry hesitated. "Right now?" She nodded. "If the map really is showing us what we need to see, then something tells me it's not done with us yet." With a sigh, Harry followed as Hermione stepped into a quiet alcove between two shops. She pulled the map from her bag, carefully unrolling it beneath the dim light of a street lamp. The parchment rippled as though waking from sleep. The ink, which had settled after their experience in the underground chamber, suddenly flared back to life, shifting, expanding. The paths of Diagon Alley reappeared, but now something new was forming. A name, the Lost Vault of Nocturne. Harry and Hermione exchanged a glance. "Nocturne," Harry muttered, "as in Nocturne Alley." Hermione swallowed. "It must be." The map pulsed again, revealing an intricate network of tunnels beneath Nocturne Alley, winding and twisting like veins beneath the surface. A single path was highlighted, leading to a vault buried deep below the known wizarding world. Harry exhaled. "We just found a hidden chamber beneath Diagon Alley, and now this thing wants to lead us under Nocturne Alley. This is escalating quickly." Hermione bit her lip, scanning the details. "But think about what we saw, Harry. The names of the people who came before us, the warning that knowledge must be used wisely. This vault, it's connected to everything." Harry frowned. "Or it's something that should stay hidden." Hermione hesitated, her fingers tracing the outline of the passage on the map. "I don't think we were led here by accident. The map is showing us these places because they hold something important." Harry sighed, running a hand through his hair. He understood her reasoning. He even agreed with it. But something about this path felt different, darker, more uncertain. Then, as if in response to their hesitation, the map shifted again. Words unfurled across the bottom in glowing script. "Time is against you. Others are watching." A sharp chill crept down Harry's spine. Hermione inhaled sharply. "Someone else is after the map," she whispered. Harry's grip on his wand tightened. He scanned the dark alley, his instincts sharpening. The street was still empty, but that didn't mean they were alone. The mannequin in Elwyn's Curiosities had warned them. Only those with pure intent could unlock the map's secrets. But if someone else was searching for it, "We should go back to Hogwarts," Harry said abruptly. Hermione blinked. "What?" "We need time to think," he said. "If someone's after this, we need to figure out who. We can't just charge into Nocturne Alley without knowing what we're up against." Hermione hesitated, clearly torn. Every instinct in her wanted to follow the map's trail immediately, to uncover whatever history had been buried beneath the wizarding world. But Harry was right. They weren't the only ones involved anymore. Finally, she nodded. "All right," she said reluctantly. "We take the map back with us. We research. We figure out what we're walking into." Harry let out a breath of relief. "Good, because something tells me this is bigger than just the two of us." With a careful hand, Hermione rolled up the map and tucked it securely into her bag. Then, together, they stepped away from the alley and toward the leaky cauldron, their pace quickening, a sense of urgency settling in their chests. The alley remained silent in their wake, but if they had turned back, they would have seen it, a shadow shifting in the darkness, a figure standing just beyond the lantern's glow, watching, waiting. The leaky cauldron was nearly empty when Harry and Hermione stepped inside, its warm glow a stark contrast to the cool night air outside. A single lantern flickered behind the bar, casting long, shifting shadows against the wooden walls. Tom, the innkeeper, glanced up from polishing a mug and gave them a knowing look. "Bit late for a stroll, isn't it?" he asked. Hermione offered a polite smile, but Harry only nodded, too preoccupied to answer properly. They had been followed. He could feel it. That creeping sensation at the back of his neck hadn't faded since the words appeared on the map. Asterisk, asterisk, others are watching. Hermione led the way to a quiet corner booth, drawing the heavy velvet curtains around them to shield their table from view. She set her bag down carefully, then reached inside, her fingers curling around the scroll. She unrolled it again. The map shimmered faintly, still marked with the new passage beneath Nocturne Alley. The words warning them of unseen watchers had faded, but the unease remained. "We need to think," Hermione whispered, running a finger over the parchment. "If someone else is looking for the map, then they must know what it can do." Which means, she hesitated, piecing the logic together in her head. "They might have known about it before we did." Harry frowned. But who would know about something like this? If it was common knowledge, someone else would have found that chamber before us. Hermione chewed her lip. "Not necessarily. Think about it, Newt Scamander, Bathilda Bagshot, even Nicholas Flamel. They were all scholars, seekers of knowledge. What if the people who found the map weren't the kind to broadcast their discoveries?" Harry exhaled. "And what if the ones looking for it now aren't the kind to play by the rules?" The thought settled heavily between them. Hermione's eyes darkened with worry. If the map only reveals itself to those it deems worthy, then maybe whoever is after it wasn't chosen. Harry drummed his fingers against the wooden table. "So they're trying to take a shortcut." Hermione nodded. "Or worse, trying to take it from us." A long silence stretched between them. Outside, the faint sound of footsteps echoed through the cobbled alley. Harry's muscles tensed automatically, but when he glanced toward the curtained window, nothing moved beyond it. Still, he had the distinct feeling they weren't as hidden as they hoped. "We should get back to Hogwarts," he said, voice low. Now, Hermione hesitated. But what if? Now, Hermione, Harry insisted. Before whoever was watching us decides to make a move. She nodded quickly, rolling up the map with delicate precision before tucking it back into her bag. They slid from the booth, moving quietly toward the back of the inn where the fireplace waited. Tom gave them a mildly curious glance as they approached. "Not staying the night, then." "Change of plans," Harry said. Tom merely shrugged, stepping aside as Hermione pulled a handful of Floo powder from a small dish on the mantel. She threw it into the fire. Hogwarts. The flames roared emerald green. Without hesitation, she stepped inside, vanishing into the swirl of magic. Harry followed a second later, feeling the familiar pull of Floo travel as he spun through the network of fireplaces. Diagon Alley, fading away into nothingness. When he landed, stumbling slightly, he found himself in the Gryffindor common room. The fire crackled warmly in the hearth. The room otherwise quiet. Everyone had long since gone to bed. Hermione was already there, brushing soot from her sleeves, her face drawn with concern. "We need to put this somewhere safe," she said immediately. Harry nodded. "Where?" She hesitated. "The room of requirement." Harry considered it. The enchanted room had served them well before, providing them exactly what they needed when they needed it. If the map needed protecting, perhaps it was the best choice. Before he could answer, however, something shifted in the air. A sharp crackling noise. Then, just as suddenly as it came, it was gone. Harry turned instinctively, scanning the room. "Did you hear that?" Hermione paled. "Yes." They were supposed to be alone. The common room was empty. The castle itself was asleep. And yet, the map in Hermione's bag had begun to glow. A new message was forming. Slowly, hesitantly, Hermione reached inside and unrolled the parchment once more. 3 words appeared in elegant script. "You are not alone." A chill ran down Harry's spine. Hermione's breath hitched. Then, a shadow moved near the staircase. Someone was in the room with them. Harry's wand was in his hand before he even thought about it, his grip tight as his heart pounded in his chest. Hermione was frozen beside him, her breath shallow, the map still clutched in her trembling fingers. The glow from the parchment pulsed softly, illuminating the empty common room empty, except for the shadow near the staircase. Harry's voice was low but firm. "Who's there?" No answer. The fire crackled, throwing flickering light across the stone walls. The silence stretched, thick and unnatural, as though the very air was holding its breath. Hermione shifted beside him, slowly reaching for her wand. "Lumos," she whispered. A beam of light cut through the dimness, casting sharp shadows across the room. For a moment, nothing moved. Then, a figure stepped forward. It wasn't a stranger. It was Draco Malfoy. Harry felt the tension in his shoulders snap like a coiled spring. His grip on his wand didn't loosen. "What are you doing here, Malfoy?" Malfoy didn't sneer or throw out a snide remark. His usual arrogance was absent. Instead, he stood in the dim light, his pale face unreadable, his sharp eyes locked onto the glowing map in Hermione's hands. "I could ask you the same thing, Potter," he said finally, his voice quieter than usual. Hermione tightened her hold on the parchment. "Were you following us?" Malfoy exhaled through his nose. "I didn't have to." He hesitated, his gaze flickering to the map. "I know what that is." A sharp silence followed. Harry's grip on his wand tightened. "How?" Malfoy's lips pressed together. "Because I've been looking for it." Harry felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. "You knew about the map." Malfoy hesitated. His jaw clenched slightly, as if debating whether to speak. Then, with visible reluctance, he said, "Not exactly, but I knew something like it existed." Hermione's eyes narrowed. "And how exactly did you come across that bit of information?" Malfoy let out a slow breath. "My family's library." Harry and Hermione exchanged a look. The Malfoys had spent generations collecting rare magical artifacts and forbidden knowledge. If there was any mention of the map's existence, it made sense that it would be buried somewhere within the vast collection of dark and powerful secrets hoarded by his ancestors. Malfoy continued, his voice quieter. "There are old records, fragments of stories, references to a magical artifact that reveals paths hidden beneath the wizarding world. But nothing concrete, just whispers." His gaze flickered back to the map, the faintest trace of something unreadable in his expression. Until now, Harry didn't trust him. Not yet. "And what exactly do you want with it?" Malfoy's jaw tightened. "That depends on what's on it." Harry scoffed. "So you admit it? You were hopping to get to it first." Malfoy's eyes flashed. "I don't think you understand, Potter. You're not the only ones looking for it." Hermione stiffened. "What do you mean?" Malfoy hesitated. The flickering firelight cast shadows across his face, making him look strangely weary. "There are people, powerful people, who would do anything to get their hands on that map." He exhaled, running a hand through his platinum hair. "And if you don't protect it properly, they will take it from you." A cold weight settled over them. Hermione's fingers clenched around the edges of the map. "Who's after it?" Malfoy hesitated again, then shook his head. "I don't know. Not exactly. But my mother overheard something, whispers of a group searching for something ancient. Something lost beneath the wizarding world." His expression darkened. "If the map has revealed a vault beneath Nocturne Alley, then they know about it too." Harry swallowed hard. The words on the map echoed in his mind. "Time is against you. Others are watching." Hermione's voice was tight. "Then we don't have much time." Malfoy studied her for a long moment. Then, to Harry's surprise, he gave a slow nod. "No, we don't." For the first time in his life, Harry saw something in Malfoy's expression that he had never seen before. Not arrogance, not malice, just unease. A warning. Harry exhaled sharply, lowering his wand just slightly. "You're serious about this?" Malfoy's lips pressed together. "More serious than you realize." Hermione looked between them, her mind racing. "Then we need to get ahead of whoever's coming for this." Harry glanced at her, and that means... Hermione squared her shoulders. "We go to the vault." Malfoy blinked. "What?" She set her jaw. "The map led us to the underground chamber. It brought us this far for a reason. If someone else is after the vault, we can't wait for them to find it first." Harry hesitated, every instinct in him screaming caution. But Hermione was right. If they wanted answers, if they wanted to protect the map, they had to move now. Malfoy studied them for a long moment, then let out a dry, humorless chuckle. "You two really don't know how to walk away from danger, do you?" Harry shot him a look. "You're here too, aren't you?" Malfoy smirked. "Touché." Hermione took a deep breath. "Then it's settled. We leave tomorrow night." Harry nodded. "Tomorrow night." Malfoy rolled his eyes. "Brilliant. Breaking into a hidden vault beneath Nocturne Alley with Potter and Granger. Just what I always dreamed of." Hermione ignored him, already rolling up the map again. "Get some sleep," she said firmly. "We'll need all the strength we can get." Malfoy gave her a dry look. "You realize none of us are sleeping tonight, right?" She didn't answer, because she knew he was right. Tomorrow night, everything would change. The castle was unnervingly quiet as the hours stretched toward morning. The fire in the common room burned low, crackling softly, casting flickering shadows across the walls. Harry sat in an armchair by the hearth, staring into the embers, his mind racing. Across from him, Hermione was curled up with the map open in her lap, studying every detail by wanlight. The glow from the parchment illuminated her face, her brow furrowed in deep concentration. Every so often, the ink would ripple, as if shifting in response to her thoughts. Malfoy, on the other hand, leaned against the wall near the window, arms crossed, his sharp eyes fixed on the moonlit grounds outside. His usual air of superiority was absent. If anything, he looked tense. Harry finally broke the silence. "You trust this vault isn't some kind of trap?" Malfoy didn't look away from the window. "I don't trust anything, Potter." Hermione sighed, rubbing her temples. "We don't have a choice. If someone else is after this, we need to move first." Harry nodded. "And if it's dangerous?" Malfoy smirked, finally turning to face them. "Isn't that half the fun?" Hermione shot him a glare, but he just shrugged. "The vault isn't in Gringotts," she said, bringing their attention back to the map. "Which means it's not protected by goblin magic. That could work in our favor." Harry leaned forward. "What do we know about it?" Hermione tapped her wand against the parchment, and the ink shimmered, revealing additional details. "It's ancient, tunnels beneath Nocturne Alley predate most of Diagon Alley itself. Some say they were once part of a hidden network used by early witches and wizards to store powerful magical artifacts. Malfoy arched an eyebrow. Or contraband. Hermione ignored him. The vault itself appears to be sealed by a series of enchantments, and she hesitated. It requires a key. Harry frowned. A key? What kind of key? Hermione bit her lip. I don't know yet. The map isn't showing that part. Malfoy scoffed. Brilliant. We're breaking into a vault, and we don't even have the key. Hermione glared at him. If we can get to the entrance, maybe the map will show us more. Harry stood. Then we go at nightfall. Malfoy pushed off the wall. Fine, but if we die, I'm blaming both of you. Hermione rolled her eyes. Noted. The plan was set. By the time the sun rose, all three of them had slipped back to their dormitories, pretending to go about their day as usual. But the weight of the map burned in the back of their minds. Time was running out. The night came swiftly. Dressed in dark cloaks, they met outside the castle's entrance, their wands hidden but ready. Malfoy had secured a safe passage through the Floo network, one of the perks of growing up in a family that dealt in secrets. Nocturne Alley was nearly deserted when they arrived. The usual eerie glow from the street lamps cast long, twisting shadows across the uneven cobblestones. The shops were closed, their signs swaying slightly in the cold breeze. The alley smelled of damp stone, old parchment, and something faintly metallic. Harry kept his hood low as they walked deeper. Hermione clutched the map inside her cloak, her fingers ghosting over the parchment. Malfoy, on the other hand, moved like he belonged there, his confidence effortless, his steps soundless. They reached an old iron gate at the end of a narrow passageway between two abandoned shops. It looked unremarkable, just rusted metal and stone. But when Hermione pulled out the map and laid it flat against the bars, the ink pulsed. The symbols shifted. A hidden passage revealed itself. Malfoy let out a low whistle. I'll admit, that's impressive. Harry ignored him, stepping forward. How do we open it? Hermione's eyes scanned the new script appearing on the map. It says, the vault recognizes only those who seek with purpose. The key lies within. Harry frowned. That's not helpful. Malfoy scoffed. Oh, I don't know. Sounds like a riddle to me. Hermione inhaled sharply. Wait. She glanced down at the silver chalice still tucked in her satchel. The chalice from the underground chamber. The runes. Without another word, she pulled it out and held it up to the gate. The air shimmered. A soft, humming noise filled the alley as the iron bars began to shift and twist, untangling themselves like vines. Then, with a deep groan, the gate unlocked. Beyond it, a stone staircase spiraled downward into darkness. Harry and Hermione exchanged a glance. Malfoy grinned, ladies first. Hermione rolled her eyes and took the first step. They descended slowly, the air growing colder with every step. The scent of old magic clung to the walls, thick and unyielding. The deeper they went, the more the space around them seemed to stretch, as if they were walking into something far older than the city above. Finally, the staircase opened into a vast chamber. A towering stone door loomed ahead, its surface covered in intricate carvings. The runes glowed faintly, similar to the ones they had seen before, but these pulsed like a heartbeat. And in the center of the door, embedded in the stone, an asterisk keyhole. Hermione exhaled. We were right. The chalice was part of the key. Harry stepped closer, inspecting the markings. So, how do we use it? Malfoy, for once, looked serious. Carefully, Hermione raised the chalice again. But before she could move, the air behind them shifted. A voice, low and unfamiliar, spoke from the darkness. You really shouldn't be here. They spun around. From the shadows, cloaked figures emerged. They weren't alone. Harry's wand was in his hand before he even thought about it. His heart beat, a thunderous rhythm in his ears. Beside him, Hermione clutched the chalice tightly, her breath quick and shallow. Malfoy, for once, looked deadly serious, his sharp gaze flicking between the cloaked figures who had stepped from the shadows. There were 3 of them, hooded, faceless in the dim light. Their presence felt cold, calculated. They did not rush forward. They did not attack. They simply waited. The tallest of the 3 took a slow step forward. His voice was smooth, measured. The vault does not belong to you. Hermione, to her credit, did not falter. And who does it belong to? She asked, keeping her voice steady. A low chuckle. To those who understand its power. Harry's grip on his wand tightened. And that would be you. The man tilted his head slightly, as though amused. Not just us. Others have sought this place before you. Some have failed. Some have disappeared entirely. His gaze flickered toward the map Hermione held. Yet, the path has chosen you. That makes you interesting. Malfoy scoffed. Great, we're interesting. That's usually code for you're in serious trouble. The second figure, shorter, but no less imposing, spoke next. You do not understand what lies beyond that door. Hermione squared her shoulders. Then explain it to us. Another chuckle. Knowledge is not given. It is taken. If you are worthy, you will take it for yourselves. A tense silence settled between them. Harry stole a glance at the stone door behind them, the keyhole glinting faintly. Whatever was inside that vault, it was important enough that these people, whoever they were, didn't want just anyone to access it, which meant he had asterisk too. He exhaled sharply. All right, he said. If this is a test, then let's take it. Malfoy gave him a sharp look. Potter. But Hermione was already moving. She turned to face the door, lifted the chalice in her hands, and poured the remaining liquid from the underground fountain into the keyhole. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, the ground trembled. carvings on the door flared with light, golden patterns, igniting like fire, racing through veins. The stone groaned and shifted, grinding apart as the entrance asterisk opened. The cloaked figures did not move. They only watched. Harry met Hermione's eyes. Together, she nodded. Malfoy reluctantly stepped up beside them. "If we die, I'm haunting you both." With a final breath, they stepped through the vault door, and the world changed. The chamber beyond was vast. Asterisk, asterisk, endless asterisk, asterisk, stretching far beyond what should have been possible beneath Nocturne Alley. The walls shimmered like liquid night, filled with swirling constellations, as if they had stepped into the space between time itself. At the heart of the room stood a pedestal, and on that pedestal, resting in a perfect pool of silver light, lay an asterisk, asterisk, ancient book. Harry swallowed hard. "That's it." Hermione's voice was barely a whisper. "The Archive of the Lost." Malfoy whistled lowly. "So, do we grab it, or does it bite?" Hermione ignored him, stepping forward carefully. The air in the chamber asterisk hummed asterisk, asterisk around them, thick with power, heavy with something unseen. She reached out. Her fingers brushed the leather cover. A voice boomed through the chamber. "You stand before the knowledge of the ancients. Speak your purpose." The ground shook beneath them. The chamber asterisk shifted. The book asterisk, asterisk glowed. Harry stepped forward without hesitation. "We seek the truth." The voice rumbled like thunder. "Then take it. But remember, knowledge is a gift and a curse." The glow pulsed one final time, and then the book belonged to them. When they stepped back into the antechamber, the cloaked figures were gone. The vault door had sealed behind them. The alley above was unchanged, quiet, undisturbed. But Harry, Hermione, and Malfoy knew better. Something had changed. As they walked away, the weight of the book heavy in Hermione's hands, Harry glanced back once. The iron gate had locked once more, its passage hidden. The vault was closed, but its secrets were now theirs. Malfoy shoved his hands into his pockets. "So, what now?" Hermione exhaled, staring down at the book in her grasp. "Now," she said, "we figure out what we just unleashed." And as they disappeared into the night, the stars above seemed to shimmer, whispering of the knowledge waiting to be revealed.